The Grand Galactic Tournament was the pinnacle of achievement across the known universe, a showcase of tactical brilliance, technological prowess, and interspecies diplomacy held once every 50 standard cycles. Representatives from thousands of civilizations across 17 galaxies gathered to compete in a series of challenges designed to test the limits of sentient capability, and for the 7th consecutive tournament, humanity was explicitly banned from participation. Commander Eliana West stood before the enormous holographic display in Earth's Central Command, watching the tournament's opening ceremony unfold from 40 light-years away. Her weathered face remained stoic as Ambassador Krexthal, the tournament's 8-limbed, crystalline administrator, announced the participants. The Galactic Council reaffirms its commitment to fair competition. Krexthal's translated voice echoed throughout the chamber. The human exemption remains in effect due to their demonstrated inability to adhere to conventional ethical standards during conflict resolution. A diplomatic way of saying humanity fought too dirty. Eliana's jaw tightened. The first exclusion had been humiliating, the 7th was infuriating. Especially now, when humanity needed allies more than ever. "They're scared of us," remarked Admiral Chen, his aged face illuminated by the blue glow of the holodisplay. "Always have been." "With good reason," Eliana replied. "But fear doesn't help us against the Vex." The Vex. A race of hyper-advanced machine intelligences from beyond the galactic rim, steadily expanding through the outer systems. Initial diplomatic overtures had yielded nothing but calculated silence, followed by the systematic dismantling of 3 human colony worlds. The Galactic Council had offered token sympathy, but little else. Human problems were human problems. "We could use tournament allies," said Dr. Nazari, Earth's leading xenopsychologist. "The Council treats winners like gods." "Then we'll need to find another way in," Eliana said, her mind already formulating a plan she knew would be called reckless at best, treasonous at worst. She dismissed her staff and accessed a secured channel on her neural implant. A familiar face materialized, Major Kai Santos, her former second-in-command, now commanding the stealth frigate Subterfuge on the edges of Council space. "Ready for something monumentally stupid?" she asked without preamble. Kai's scarred face broke into a crooked grin. "You had me at monumentally stupid, Commander." The tournament complex was a marvel of pangalactic engineering, a massive space station orbiting a neutron star, drawing on its immense gravitational energy. Hundreds of spacecraft from participating civilizations dotted the surrounding space, a kaleidoscope of technological diversity aboard the Subterfuge, cloaked from detection systems and maintaining position in the radiation shadow of a nearby asteroid. Eliana reviewed the plan with her 7-person crew. "We're entering as the Proxima Centauri delegation," she explained, gesturing to the fabricated credentials Dr. Nazari had prepared. "The real Centaurians declined their invitation this cycle, too busy with their religious ascension rituals. So we're impersonating 4-armed gas breathers," Tactical Officer Lin said, eyeing the sophisticated environmental suits they'd modified. "Seems legit." "The suits are perfect," Dr. Nazari assured them. "The exoskeletal frames will simulate their additional limbs, and the breathing apparatus will emit the correct gas mixtures for authenticity. I've also programmed the correct pheromone signatures." "And when they realize we're human?" asked Maya Rodriguez, their systems specialist. "By then, we'll have already competed," Eliana replied. "Tournament rules state that once challenges begin, no team can be disqualified except for cheating within the competition itself. Being human isn't cheating, it's just frowned upon." "So we're exploiting a loophole," Kai said with a smirk. "Exactly," Eliana nodded. "Humanity's specialty." Registration was the first true test. The Subterfuge docked at the designated Centaurian Bay, and the team, fully encased in their environmental suits, made their way to the processing center. The registration officer, a serpentine being with translucent skin revealing complex internal organs, barely looked up as they approached. "Delegation identification," it requested in the universal trade language. Dr. Nazari stepped forward, movements deliberately sluggish to mimic Centaurian locomotion, and presented their credentials. "We bring greetings from the methane clouds of Proxima," she said, her voice modulated through the suit's translation system. The officer waved a sensor over the credentials and paused. Eliana felt her pulse quicken. "Your registration was marked as declined," the officer said. "A miscommunication," Dr. Nazari replied. The High Council of Gases reconsidered. The ascension rituals progressed faster than anticipated. The serpentine being's internal organs briefly pulsed with color, the equivalent of a shrug. The tournament welcomes all qualified civilizations. Your accommodations have been maintained as per standard protocol. You are assigned to competitive bracket Epsilon 9. As they moved away from registration, Lin whispered through their private comm channel, "That was too easy. Most species can't conceive of anyone being bold enough to impersonate another civilization," Eliana replied. "It doesn't fit their ethical frameworks." "Seems like a security flaw," Maya commented. "One we're exploiting," Kai reminded her. "Let's not question our good fortune." Their quarters were designed for methane-breathing quadrupedals, uncomfortable for humans in environmental suits, but manageable. More importantly, they were private, allowing the team to remove their disguises in shifts while maintaining the illusion of a full Centaurian delegation for any monitoring systems. As the station's artificial day cycle dimmed, Eliana accessed the tournament schedule on their secure terminal. The first challenge would begin in 12 hours, the Labyrinth of Logic, a massive, reconfiguring maze designed to test problem-solving under pressure. Perfect. Humans thrived under pressure. The Labyrinth of Logic lived up to its reputation. Standing at one of 64 entrances to the massive structure, Eliana and her team, back in their Centaurian disguises, observed competitors from across the galaxy. Some were familiar: the insectoid Zith with their hive mind capabilities, the silicon-based Petrosapiens with their quantum computational abilities, and the energy beings of Tau Ceti who existed simultaneously across multiple probability states, all species with significant advantages over humans in pure computational power. "Remember," Eliana said through their private channel, "we're not here to win through brute calculation. We're here to win through creative problem-solving." Kai completed her thought. "Human specialty number 2. Ambassador Krexthal's voice boomed across the gathered competitors. "The labyrinth changes constantly. Each team must retrieve 3 tokens from its center and return to their entrance point. The labyrinth contains obstacles, both physical and mental. The first 16 teams to complete the challenge advance to the next round." As the starting tone sounded, the teams surged forward. Eliana led her group at a measured pace, conserving energy while observing the competition strategies. The Zith immediately split into individual components, exploring multiple paths simultaneously. The Petrosapiens stood motionless, clearly running internal simulations before choosing a path. "They're overthinking it," Eliana observed as they reached the first junction. "Maya, what's your read?" Maya, whose childhood fascination with mazes had evolved into expertise in spatial topology, studied the walls carefully. "The patterns in the material suggest stress points where reconfiguration occurs. If we track those instead of trying to map the actual paths, we can predict how it will change," Eliana finished. "Do it." While other competitors attempted to solve the labyrinth as a static puzzle, Maya guided them through based on the structural cues that telegraphed upcoming changes. When walls shifted, they were already positioned to take advantage. When logical puzzles blocked their path, they divided them among the team members rather than seeking perfect solutions, opting for quick, adequate answers over slow, optimal ones. They reached the center third, behind only the Zith and the probability surfing Tau Cetians. As Kai reached for one of the glowing tokens, a voice cut through their satisfaction. "Interesting approach for Centaurians," said a Petrosapien who had just arrived through another passage. "Your species typically relies on atmospheric current analysis, yet you use structural pattern recognition." Eliana stepped forward before the others could react. "The Ascension rituals have brought new insights to our methodology," she said, the suit's translator conveying what she hoped was appropriate Centaurian reverence. The Petrosapien's crystalline form shimmered skeptically, but it turned away to collect its token. "That was close," Lin muttered. "Stay in character," Eliana warned as they collected their tokens and began the journey outward. "We're not out yet." Their return journey was complicated by increasing difficulty. The labyrinth, sensing their approach to the exit, threw more complex reconfigurations at them. Twice they nearly lost team members to sudden wall shifts, and a particularly nasty logic trap cost them precious minutes. Still, they emerged as the seventh team to complete the challenge. As they exited, the observing crowd's reaction was mixed polite acknowledgement rather than the enthusiastic reception given to the Zith or Tau Cetians. Centaurians weren't expected to perform well in this type of challenge. "We're drawing attention," Dr. Nazari warned as they made their way back to their quarters. "Outperforming expectations raises questions. Then we need to perform exactly as expected in the next round," Eliana decided. "At least until the final stages." The next challenge was combat simulation, a test of tactical warfare conducted through neural interfaces that would create a shared virtual battlefield. Each species would command forces based on their own technological level, carefully calculated to ensure balance. "This is where we shine," Kai said during their preparation. "Humanity has been refining warfare since we first picked up rocks. It's also where we're most likely to be recognized," Eliana cautioned. "Human battle tactics are distinctive." "Then we'll use distinctly non-human tactics," Lin suggested. "We'll study historical Centaurian conflicts and mimic their approach." Eliana shook her head. "No. That would guarantee failure. We need to win, but win in a way that doesn't scream human." Dr. Nazari's expression brightened. "Or we win in a way that screams many species at once. We borrow tactics from across the galaxy: Zith swarm approaches, Petrosapian defensive formations, Arcturian flanking maneuvers. A tactical amalgamation that's confusing to categorize." "Tactical camouflage," Eliana nodded. "I like it." The combat simulation placed them against 11 other teams in a massive virtual landscape. Each commanded forces appropriate to their species. The Centaurians received cloud ships that utilized atmospheric manipulation as their primary weapons. Eliana split their forces into 3 groups. Kai would implement Zith-inspired swarm tactics, Lin would utilize Petrosapian defensive formations, and she would lead the main force using a hybrid approach that borrowed elements from multiple species but committed to none. The strategy worked brilliantly. Other competitors, attempting to predict their movements based on expected Centaurian tactics, found themselves consistently outmaneuvered. By borrowing methodologies from across the galaxy, they created an approach that was familiar enough to seem plausible but unpredictable enough to be effective. They finished third, behind the warlike Draconis and the strategic savants of Arcturus. More importantly, while their performance generated interest, it didn't trigger immediate suspicion. Just murmurs about an unexpectedly effective Centaurian delegation. Back in their quarters, the team's celebration was tempered by growing concern. They had advanced to the final 8 teams, which meant greater scrutiny and more complex challenges. "The final rounds are public spectacles," Dr. Nazari reminded them. "Full sensor scans, biological monitoring, psychometric analysis." "Can our suits hold up?" Eliana asked. "They'll mask life signs, but not indefinitely," Nazari admitted. "And the final challenge typically involves direct neural interfacing. The system will detect our very human brain patterns." Eliana paced the room, considering their options. "Then we need to win before the final challenge, or at least make enough of an impression that we can leverage it when we're inevitably exposed." "How?" Maya asked. "By ensuring humanity gets what it needs, regardless of whether we're officially declared winners," Eliana replied, her expression hardening. "It's time to execute the second phase of our mission." While the others rested, Eliana and Kai slipped out of their quarters using temporary sensor blinds Maya had programmed. Their destination, the tournament's central database, which contained detailed information on every participating civilization including their military capabilities, technological innovations, and diplomatic stances, information that could help Earth identify potential allies against the Vex. The semi-final challenge was the Cosmic Conundrum, a test combining higher physics, xenobiology, and metaphysical philosophy. Teams were presented with a simulated unstable star system and given 12 hours to devise a solution that would preserve intelligent life on its 7 inhabited worlds, each with different environmental and evolutionary requirements. This is less about finding the perfect answer and more about demonstrating ethical reasoning and cross-species empathy, Dr. Nazari explained as they analyzed the scenario. The judges want to see how we prioritize different forms of life. Then we give them something unexpected, Eliana decided. Most species will focus on technological solutions, moving planets, creating shields, evacuating populations. We'll focus on cooperation instead. Their approach was quintessentially human while appearing universally enlightened. Rather than imposing a single solution, they created a framework that allowed each species to contribute according to their strengths. The silicon-based life forms would reinforce planetary crusts, the gas-dwelling intelligences would stabilize atmospheric conditions, the energy beings would modulate the stars' erratic emissions. It was humanity's greatest strength disguised as universal wisdom, the ability to unite disparate groups toward a common goal. When the solutions were presented to the judging panel representatives from the Council's oldest civilizations, the Centaurian approach generated genuine interest. It wasn't the most technologically innovative solution, but it was the most inclusive, requiring sacrifice and contribution from all species while minimizing overall casualties. They advanced to the final round alongside the Zith, the Arcturians, and the Tau-Cetians. "We've done it," Maya said as they returned to their quarters. Final four. "And tonight we make our move," Eliana reminded them. The database infiltration had yielded valuable intelligence, but there was one more critical piece: access to the tournament's communication hub, which would allow them to broadcast their message to representatives from all 17 galaxies simultaneously. As the station's cycle shifted to its rest period, Eliana addressed her team. "Tomorrow will likely end with our exposure, so tonight we implement our contingency." "Maya, are the communication protocols ready?" Maya nodded. "I can splice our message into the tournament broadcast when you give the signal." "Good. Kai and I will attend the pre-final reception. The rest of you, prepare for rapid extraction. Once our cover is blown, we'll have minutes at most to reach the subterfuge." The reception was a grand affair, with delegates from across the known universe mingling in the tournament's great hall. Eliana and Kai maintained their Centaurian disguises, moving carefully through the crowd while gathering final intelligence. Most conversation centered on the surprising performance of the Centaurian delegation, with theories ranging from religious enlightenment to secret technological advancements. Ambassador Krexthal approached them midway through the evening, crystalline limbs arranged in what Eliana's cultural training identified as a gesture of respect. "The Council is impressed by your delegation's performance," Krexthal said. "Particularly your solution to the cosmic conundrum. It demonstrated unusual perspective." "The ascension brings clarity," Eliana replied, utilizing Centaurian religious phrases Dr. Nazari had coached her on. Indeed, Krexthal's translator conveyed polite agreement, but the ambassador's body language suggested suspicion. "Though some have noted your tactical approach bears interesting similarities to multiple species. We study all who navigate the cosmos," Kai interjected. "Knowledge is vapor, meant to be shared across atmospheres." Before Krexthal could respond, a commotion erupted across the hall. A delegation of actual Centaurians had arrived, apparently having completed their ascension rituals early and decided to attend as observers. "Time to go," Eliana muttered through their private channel. As they moved toward the exit, security personnel began to converge. Krexthal's crystalline form vibrated in what could only be alarm. "Imposters," the ambassador's voice boomed across the hall. "Security protocols engaged." Eliana tapped her neural implant, sending the signal to Maya. "Execute now." Throughout the tournament complex, every communication screen simultaneously activated. Eliana's face, her actual human face, appeared on each one as she removed her helmet. "Representatives of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice calm and measured. "I am Commander Eliana West of Earth. Humanity apologizes for this deception, but when conventional channels are closed, unconventional ones become necessary." Security forces surrounded them, weapons drawn, but hesitating violence was forbidden within the tournament grounds, and this unprecedented situation wasn't covered by standard protocols. For 7 tournaments, humanity has been excluded, deemed too unpredictable, too aggressive for civilized competition, Eliana continued. Yet we've demonstrated, through our performance as Centaurians, that we belong among you. More importantly, we come with urgent news that affects all sentient life. On every screen, images of the Vex appeared, the machine intelligence's systematic advance through human colony worlds, their refusal of communication, their ruthless efficiency. The Vex aren't just a human problem. They're expanding exponentially, and their path will eventually reach Council space. They don't recognize distinctions between our civilizations. To them, all biological life appears to be an inefficiency to be corrected. Murmurs spread through the gathered delegates as the implications sank in. Humanity doesn't ask for your protection, Eliana stated firmly. We ask for partnership. Together, we can stand against this threat. Divided, we will fall one civilization at a time. Ambassador Krexthal stepped forward, crystalline limbs vibrating with barely contained fury. This breach of tournament protocols is unprecedented. Humans were excluded for precisely this type of behavior, disregard for established rules, manipulation, deception. With respect, Ambassador, Eliana countered, we used your rules against you. We didn't cheat within the competition, we merely circumvented your arbitrary exclusion. And in doing so, we've demonstrated the very qualities that make humanity valuable in the face of existential threats like the Vex: adaptability, creativity, and yes, a willingness to break conventions when survival demands it. The Arcturian delegation approached, their luminescent bodies pulsing with communication patterns. The human has logic in her argument, their translator conveyed. The Vex data patterns match our deep space observations from the galactic rim. We had not identified the source until now. Preposterous. Krexthal objected. One cannot reward such blatant violation of council edicts. One can when the alternative is extinction, came another voice. The Zith representative stepped forward, its compound eyes reflecting the light of the hull. We have observed human conflicts from afar. They are indeed aggressive, unpredictable, and occasionally brutal, precisely the qualities needed against an enemy like the Vex. The Great Hall erupted in debate, delegates forming factions as they argued the merits of human inclusion versus adherence to tradition. Eliana caught Kai's eye and nodded slightly. This was exactly what they had hoped for: division among the council, opening space for new alliances. Commander West will be detained while the council deliberates, Krexthal announced finally, attempting to reassert control. Actually, Eliana replied, we'll be departing. But we leave you with this. She activated her neural implant once more, and Maya released their final payload, detailed defense strategies against the Vex, compiled from humanity's hard-won experience, along with coordinates for a neutral meeting location for those civilizations willing to form an alliance. Choose wisely, Eliana said as she and Kai backed toward the exit. Tradition has its place, but survival requires adaptation. Security forces moved to intercept them, but were blocked by delegates from several civilizations, including, surprisingly, representatives from Arcturus and Tau Ceti. Let them leave, the Arcturian delegate communicated. We have much to discuss as a council, and the humans have given us much to consider. As they retreated through the corridors toward their extraction point, Eliana's neural implant signaled an incoming communication not from her team, but from an unknown source using tournament channels. Commander West, the translated voice of the Zith representative, resonated in her mind. Your strategy was flawed yet effective. The council will debate for cycles, but some of us require less deliberation. Expect contact at your provided coordinates. How many? Eliana asked. Enough, came the simple reply. Your species' reputation for fighting dirty may soon prove valuable to us all. At the docking bay, they reunited with the rest of the team. The subterfuge was already powered up, its stealth systems engaged. As they prepared for departure, tournament security finally organized a coherent response, sealing off sections of the station. Too late, Kai noted as they boarded. As usual, committee decision-making can't keep pace with individual action. The subterfuge slipped away from the tournament station, cloaking systems rendering it invisible to conventional sensors. On the bridge, Eliana watched the massive structure recede. Did we win? Maya asked quietly. Not the tournament, Eliana replied. But we weren't playing their game, we were playing ours. And the Vex? Dr. Nazari questioned. Will the council help? The council might not, Eliana said, but we don't need all of them. We just need enough who recognize that humanity's flaws might be assets against a threat like the Vex. She gestured to the communication system, where signals were already appearing from individual civilizations, not official council communications, but private channels from species willing to explore alliance. So we crashed their party, stole their data, embarrassed their leadership, and still walked away with potential allies, Kai summarized with a grin. Humanity in a nutshell. And next tournament, Eliana added, allowing herself a small smile, I suspect the invitations will include Earth. As the subterfuge engaged its FTL drive, leaving the tournament and the council far behind, Eliana contemplated the challenges ahead. The Vex were still advancing, and even with new allies, the fight would be desperate and costly. But humanity had once again demonstrated its greatest strength, the ability to change the rules when the game was unwinnable. The universe had one rule: no humans allowed. They soon regretted it. 3 cycles later, Commander Eliana West stood on the observation deck of the Earth-Sith Joint Command Carrier Adaptation, watching as the combined fleet of 7 species performed coordinated maneuvers on the edge of Vex-controlled space. The Arcturians have completed their quantum disruption protocols, Admiral Chen reported, his aged face now bearing additional scars from the first Vex counterattack. The Tau Cetians have positioned probability anchors throughout the target system. We're ready. And the Council? Eliana asked. Still deliberating on their official response, Chen replied with a knowing smile. Though their unofficial observers seem quite interested in our approach. On a nearby tactical display, Eliana could see the unique configurations of their allied forces, each species contributing according to their evolutionary strengths, just as they had proposed in the tournament's cosmic conundrum. The Zith Hive ships would provide distributed intelligence processing. The crystalline vessels of Krexthal's people, who had joined despite their ambassador's objections, would absorb and redirect Vex energy weapons. The Arcturians would disrupt the quantum communications the machine intelligences relied upon, and humanity would do what it did best: adapt, improvise, and find the opponent's weaknesses through unorthodox approaches. A communication alert sounded, and Ambassador Krexthal's crystalline form appeared on the main display. Commander West, the translator conveyed, along with subtle tones indicating reluctant respect. The tournament committee has reached a decision regarding Earth's petition for inclusion in the next Galactic Tournament. And? Eliana prompted, though she suspected the answer from the ambassador's harmonic patterns. Humanity will be welcomed as full participants, Krexthal stated. With certain, behavioral provisions. Tell the committee we accept their invitation, Eliana replied diplomatically. Though we may be somewhat preoccupied with the Vex situation. Precisely why the invitation is extended, Krexthal admitted. The committee recognizes that certain, unconventional approaches have merit in specific circumstances. As the communication ended, Kai joined her at the observation window. Imagine that, he said with mock surprise. All it took was an existential threat to get us invited to the party. That, and proving we could crash it successfully when excluded, Eliana added. The tactical alert sounded. Vex formations had been detected moving toward their position. Throughout the combined fleet, crews of vastly different species prepared for battle, each following strategies that incorporated their unique strengths while accounting for their weaknesses. Eliana gave the command to advance. As the fleet moved forward as one, she reflected that perhaps this was humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy, not technology or culture or even military tactics, but the simple, stubborn insistence that rules could be rewritten, that underdogs could triumph, and that diversity of approach was strength rather than weakness. The Vex had never encountered an opponent like this combined force, and like the tournament committee, they would soon regret underestimating what emerged when humanity was allowed to play.